Oh, I am so glad that you found your way back to the Yoga and Black podcast. But if you're new to the show, welcome. The show is all about sharing the stories of Black yoga and holistic wellness providers all around the world. And the goal is to bring more community awareness to the Black folks that not only practice yoga, but teach it too, to show our community that we too participate in these practices to help us heal and lead fuller lives. So, without me talking anymore, please, please, I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks for listening. All right, folks, welcome back to the Yoga in Black podcast. So happy to have you here. This is Tarani, your host. This, as always, is a show about not just yoga, but the life of the yoga instructors and teachers and holistic wellness professionals, all that stuff that you were seeing in front of your face, just to get more light shine on these beautiful Black faces that are out here doing these things. So this week, I have Maiya Harrell with me of Cincinnati, Ohio, and of Hustle and Heal. So I am going to shut up and let Maiya talk a little bit more about herself.
Yes, hello everybody. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here and to share space with other individuals that look like me, that specialize in some of the skills that I do. So thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. A little bit about myself, as Tierney mentioned, my business name is Hustle and Heal LLC, and my business is rooted in the empowerment and education of holistic wellness practices for the mind, body, and soul healing. So, incorporating all aspects from the mind to the body to the spirit. Trauma informed yoga happens to be one of our specialties, as well as wellness coaching. And I am based here in Cincinnati, Ohio. We do have our own location here in Finneytown, a small intimate studio for personal and small group classes. And yeah, specializing in breath work and stress relief and just ensuring that we keep the motion going for that holistic wellness to be incorporated from the practice. So I'm very excited to be here and yes, to share this space with the world. So
Man, it sounds like you've got all the bases covered at your spot.
yes.
All the bases. That is awesome. You mentioned wellness coaching, and I will admit I do not know enough about that and what it provides. Could you dive into that a little bit more and explain what it is?
Yes. So I feel like sometimes when people hear the words paired with coaching, it's almost kind of like an aspect of us doing the work alongside of people. I always like to tell people like, hey, I am just a support system for you. So someone who is here to provide resources and someone who is here to provide motivation and encouragement when we start to embark on our journeys. And so wellness coaching in general is just the overall wellness of the individual. And so when someone is trying to pursue, their health and wellness and they keep having these plateaus or these roadblocks that they're experiencing and just trying to figure out like, hey, what's my next hurdle or where do I keep going? As I mentioned, my business centers ourselves within mind, body, and soul. And so sometimes when we start and pursue things on our own, we miss the whole aspect of how all three of those parts play together. And so I really am a viable resource for individuals to come to be like, hey, I've been having this go on in my life and, I've seen this play out in this aspect of my life. And we really sit down, talk about the holistic aspect of the life and really just start to piece together some different practices that can be implemented throughout someone's day to just experience that overall wellness for them. So,
Nice. So now that makes sense why there are so many different modalities that you practice in. Okay.
yes,
That's awesome. Thank you
yes,
for
thank you.
enlightening me on that because I was
Yes.
blissfully unaware. And I'm like, I keep hearing the term and I'm like, what does that do? So that
Yeah,
shines a much brighter light. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that.
yeah, no problem.
Um, I want to take a trip back though in time to when yoga first found its way into your life. Could you paint that story for us?
Yes. So funny enough, when I was younger, I was around like 18, 19. I was always a very explorative person and I had just started to get myself back in the gym, played basketball throughout my whole high school career. I'm 4'10", y'all. So it was kind of like, a fun little aspiration of mine to say, I'm gonna be like Mike one of these days.
Look,
um,
who? What was his name? Charlotte Hornets, Muggsy Bogues.
hmm
Like that meant that was an inspiration for me. I'm 5'1", so
Okay.
I feel you. I feel
The
you.
short folks represent. So, just always being surrounded around sports, having brothers that played, I was just always really interested in just fitness and wellness overall. And being 18, you have a little bit more flexibility to sign up for those gym memberships and, go get those cards for yourself. And so I remember my best friend from childhood, we used to go to the YMCA where there were a few Y classes through the week for the community. However, these Y classes didn't have instructors that looked like me. So it didn't really stick with me the importance and the benefits of yoga. And it was crazy enough that at the time I was experiencing depression and anxiety and my own personal, journey and just looking for those holistic practices to kind of implement into my day to day. Like I know if I go to the gym, maybe this will help relieve stress. So that was my mind frame around it. And so I left from the yoga aspect just because there wasn't that much of a personal connection with me. I'd say that was 2017, 2018. I ended up just being in the gym very heavy, hiring personal trainers for myself. And there was still this tinge around like, hey, look for a yoga instructor or, look for somebody that looks like you. So
Yeah.
I started to search around in Cincinnati, like black yoga instructors. And I ended up finding one, fell in love with it, and started to be consistent. And COVID happened. And so when I started to fall for it, fall in love with it, it was ripped away from me by force by COVID. And through the pandemic, being at home, I just ended up getting on YouTube and just looking up like black yoga instructors because that's where I was able to resonate. Like, hey, there's a whole other umbrella of yoga that, relates to me. So I can tap into that. So I started watching YouTube videos, and then I'm like, this is very exciting. So started going on Facebook Live while I was watching those YouTube videos, and then next thing I know, people started bringing their mats on Facebook Live with me while I was doing my yoga. And so everything just started to unfold itself on the journey for me. So as I started to teach online through the pandemic to others, I was awarded a scholarship to attend my vinyasa yoga practice teaching school to receive a trauma informed yoga instructor certificate. And so shortly after that, I was able to connect back with that African American yoga instructor that I connected to prior to the pandemic, and she ended up opening her own studio. So I was able to kind of
Okay.
get in a culmination of other individuals around the city, black people, who were interested to teach yoga. And so we just kind of created this whole community of individuals and started teaching there. And that was my first teaching opportunity. And ever since then, I just started to immerse myself in other local gyms. Um, and I've noticed that since I was awarded the scholarship, it was always in me to be an instructor because just through personal experiences and personal practice, I've taught myself a lot of different modalities of yoga, breath work, stress relief, and I am still currently a yoga student. It's been a journey with that, and that's a whole other section we can get into. But as far as where I am now, 3 years of teaching and interacting with the community, and now having my own studio space has it's definitely been a journey to get here, and it's been a beautiful one and a great ride. So I think I covered all bases of how yoga got here. So
I think so. That is one hell of a story. Um, you did mention that you're currently in a training. Which one are you in?
the 200 hour.
Nice,
Yes.
nice. And I love that it's just happened so organically for you.
Yeah.
Like going on live and just doing your thing and the people literally just coming to you. That is
Yeah.
that's honestly ideal as hell.
Yes.
like for that to just happen so fluidly where you have done something that people see like, oh, okay, I like what I'm seeing there. Let me go ahead and try what she's trying. and then continuing to stick with it. That is love right there in the
Yeah,
practice itself. So that is awesome that you get that experience, and just you're absolutely right. You are drawn to it very clearly, very
yeah,
clearly. It just clearly something that's meant for you.
yeah.
I
I
love that.
appreciate that.
I
Thank
love
you.
that. And I'm so grateful that you mentioned that you've been teaching prior to the 200 hour, because so
Yes.
many people that think that's a necessary thing. And I'd love to get your opinion on how, or at least on all of that, because I don't know. I don't want to say that it's become stigmatized in this particular country, but it's become almost an expectation, for people to have this in order to teach. What's your
Yeah.
opinion on it all?
Just from the aspect of how things sprouted from me and how the opportunity to even be immersed in 200 hour came up. I previously had no knowledge that there was even, I know this sounds pretty ignorant, but there was a formalized way to get certified to teach yoga. I just thought that, oh, well, there's people who study these books, and, I was reading very heavily in a lot of the books that interested me. And
Mm,
so that was also a natural draw because I am a self educator of a lot of different things, but it's also through personal experience. And funny enough is that there's been a lot of students who are immersing themselves into the 200-hour program that maybe have never actually practiced yoga in their own personal time. That
mhm.
I've actually been able to connect with them and to kind of allow a space or a little bit more insight on the importance of keeping that personal relationship with yoga, because
Yes.
I think that especially when we start to get into those formalized, institutions, we're so by the book, and I got to make sure that it's to the T and that it's to that. But I think that me not knowing that aspect afforded me a lot more of a personal connection to it, and so I feel like that helps me personally to connect to my students because I'm understanding of where they are.
Mhm.
And I always relate it because I've been really heavy on Grey's Anatomy now. But as far as, I can relate it to just that. When you go into the hospitals and your doctor, you don't want to just use medical terminology with your patients because they're not going to
Right.
understand you, and so you
Exactly.
want to have that conversation with them so that way, your students are meeting you with, oh, I don't know what pranayama yoga means, but I do know what breathing is,
Right.
or just this is everyday things. Yoga is to me an everyday motion of life, and it's not just the when I'm on my mat, when I'm in my studio. But I think that the formalized version helps us to know how to create our own curriculums in a
Mhm.
sense. It's kind of
Yeah.
like a structure almost, but the aspect of the yoga and the reality of it comes from the personal relationship that we have. And so,
Mhm.
for any teacher students that are out there, and if you do have a passion for yoga, study yourself through it, but then also allow yourself to be opened up to communities and to gravitate towards, different atmospheres that yoga might have been expressed to you in your environment. For me, it was just so happened that I was able to hop on Amazon and buy a bunch of books and, go and have a community of other Black individuals that were immersing themselves into learning about yoga. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that was my journey.
I love that. It reminds me a lot of the experience prior to the 200 hour.
Hmm.
Is a lot of self study. And it's not just study of the practice itself, but study of the self and
Yeah,
how the practices, have well affected you. I guess I should say instead of
yeah.
changed, because it could just either change you or not. But either way, it's neither here nor there. Um,
If I could touch on that too, real quick, because I think
yeah,
that is so important. Because I think that, and anybody that's taking yoga class with me or who's asked me about like how has yoga changed you, like I always start with yoga changed my life, and it wasn't just understanding like, oh, I gotta breathe and lift my arm up here, but it
right.
was I'm releasing a lot of this trauma. I'm releasing a lot of this this pain that's in me. I want to
Yes,
know more about this. So it's like an initiation of self-knowledge almost. So I'm glad that you
exactly.
pointed that out.
Yeah, because I didn't want to necessarily say change and be like, yeah, this is a universal experience. Like
Yeah.
that's a common one, but
Mhm.
like it's definitely subjective for everybody. So yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that for sure.
Yeah.
I completely lost where I was going with that, but that's okay. That is completely okay. I remembered the book that I was gonna ask you about, autobiography of a yogi. Have you read that one?
I have not. That sounds like a good one though.
Oh,
Let
it's
me check it out, girl. Hold on.
so good. Um, why am I forgetting the man's name? Oh my goodness. I'm forgetting his name, but either way, it's literally just a whole entire chronicle of his whole life of wanting to become a yogi. And
Mm.
and this is like in the term, in the sense of a renunciate, that essentially like living a monk ish lifestyle.
Mm.
And the experiences that he had throughout, because he did try to go, the route that his family wanted him to, of going to college, getting a job, doing these things, and he was in his studies and doing okay in
Mm.
school, but he knew that's not where he wanted to be. He wanted to study with the yoga masters and
Mm.
become like them, and the journey that he took to that. It was just like listening to this whole, like, well, I listened to it on audio and read it at the same time because that's how my ADHD mind works. But
Yes.
but I was just listening there, listening and reading along, and I'm just like, man, this is dope as hell. But of course, this is at a very, very different time in
Yeah.
history where life doesn't look like it does now. And I'm looking back like, oh gosh, maybe I was born in the wrong era, because
Okay.
this is what I would love to be able to do. So as
Yeah.
soon as you said that, I'm like, that's so much more aligned with how a lot of yoga has been practiced throughout the centuries, is
Yeah.
of a one person studying the practice for however long they want to, and then eventually aligning themselves with a teacher to learn more from,
Yeah.
gaining that experience for themselves, and then sharing it with others,
Yeah.
thus essentially student becoming the master, or whatever, that type of trope. But I love that that's what you get to experience, and are
Yeah.
having such an awesome trajectory with it. Like 3 years in and in a studio. Tell me more about this path that you have carved for yourself. How, like,
Yes.
what those steps all look like for you.
I'm so glad that you were able to touch on just the internal revelation, because I honestly, my path has always been cut out for health and wellness. So I was initially like in school well, pre-med in school. So my major was pre-med chemistry. I was projected to be an OBGYN. I'm like, I'll be this big shot doctor, all of this. But life happened. And like I said, I've wrestled with depression and anxiety my whole life, since I can remember the day that I can start talking, honestly.
Same.
um, and so on a soul level, I felt my whole entire being really projected into trying to understand my turmoil, trying to
Mhm.
understand my pain. And the more that I started to immerse myself in learning, like, how can I be a healthier version of myself, the more that these types of practices started to come to me. And
Yeah.
so I think it was very important for me to notice that this is a practice for me, but this is also like my healing journey. This is an aspect of what I needed when I was going through what I was going through. And so I'm a firm believer that, God allowed me to transition through everything that I did so that way I can use my gift of healing in this way. And so for me to have my own studio, it was more so like everything starts for me from a belief, because when 2020 came, like, it wasn't that I was all hope is lost, the world's about to end. I felt the most optimistic I've ever felt in my life.
You
I felt the
too?
most, yes.
And I thought I was weird for that.
No, I was like, God is coming. You know, there's about to be some really big change in this life. Let me equip myself. You
Yes.
know?
Oh my God.
It was real, okay? It was real. And the more that I like stopped denying that I was in pain, the more that I started to unfold into true healing. And when I started like finally started to see like, oh my God, this works.
Yeah.
Like that conviction, like it gave me so much passion and it gave me so much fire. And this journey to get here, let me tell you here,
It
it's
got
been real
hands, I'm sure.
ratchet. It has been so ghetto, okay? But I'm not gonna lie, like I would not change this path because just even the initiation of Hustle and Heal, and I started selling herbal infused oils. I did not have a clue that this was going to be how my business is sprouting right now, and I'm just now getting started more so because my business itself is 2 years old, you know. So
Mhm.
this really transitioning and growing from my little mustard seed of faith and my mustard seed of conviction for how it worked for me, and you know, it's just beautiful to be here.
That is so dope.
Beautiful.
So, in finding this space, what was that experience like? Was it more of a that you were searching for something, or did it just kind of fall into your lap? Because
Yeah,
I
so
noticed that there's like that thing that happens with folks that open studios is where it just suddenly presents itself, and you're like, oh, okay,
okay.
here's a thing.
Okay, I wholeheartedly know that I am like one of those law of attraction people. Like, I'll put something down, I'll write it down on a piece of paper, and you know, it's in my heart to do. But I know that it'll happen in time. I don't put stress on, oh, it has to come
Yeah.
right here. You know, like, let me look, let me pay attention to every single little detail. I don't do that. I don't worry myself with that. I'm like, it'll come when it comes. And
Mhm.
so, as I mentioned, when I first initiated teaching, I taught at multiple locations, worked with multiple gym owners, trainers, and the
Mhm.
most recent c- communication or commitment that I had was at a location that was owned by a young black-owned, you know, gym owner, and I was teaching yoga there. One of her clients is an owner of the spa that I actually work in, that my studio is located in, and we just ended up like having a really good connection. And she was like, I feel like you're the person that I needed to fill my spa. And so she's like, I have this spa here, and I think that you being a black yoga instructor, you being a thick black yoga instructor, you know, it'll really be like a really main point. And from there, I just went with it. I didn't have a consistent clientele of yoga students that were gonna come to me, but I
Mhm.
told God, I said, hey, I know that you're opening this up because it was always a hope of mine to have that space of my own to teach my practice, because I've just always been really big on just setting the standard, and I'm very minimalistic. Like, if you look at my studio, it's very simple, but the energy is mine. You know, the little touches
Right.
is mine. And I know my students are in a safe space because this is an atmosphere that I've created. So it just
Yes.
it allows me to really just kind of humble myself, because like I said, I wanted to get a studio, but I was thinking this was going to be like 4 or 5 years from now. You know, I
Yeah.
had no clue I was going to be here this today at all.
That is amazing. Well, congratulations, first and foremost. That is an
Thank
awesome,
you.
awesome accomplishment. And like I said, I knew it. It was just one of those situations where fate was
Yes.
like, I got something for you. Happy birthday.
Oh my goodness. And when I tell you, it came at a time when I needed an answer. I
Mm.
needed an answer because I'm a nursing student too. So that's a whole another, you know, umbrella we can open up. But just that wrestling, you know, that internal, is this right? Is this something I'm supposed to be doing still? You know, am I just tripping? Is this, you know, one of those
Yeah.
things? So it was definitely a holding on to faith moment for me.
And with stuff like that, I think it's something that you innately just know is right. Like your
Yeah.
intuition will definitely speak to you on if it's an opportunity you should pursue, because that does happen too, where an opportunity may come along and it sounds like the dreamiest thing ever, but then something
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't feel right about it. And you're like, this is
Yep.
this is not the thing for me, even though it is definitely, on the trajectory of what I want to do, or at least in my, you know, what is that? My manifestation book, my thought journal,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, my list of goals. But something about this one just ain't right. It's that discernment of noticing which
Yeah.
ones are the ones that are meant for you, and having someone say that to you, like, you're the person I've been looking for. I'm like, that's,
Hmm.
come
I was
on.
like, dang.
Come on. I wasn't even looking for this, like, at this
Yeah.
point. And here you are. You're like, no, I need you. I found you. This is where you're supposed to be. I love that.
Yeah.
I
And especially
love
it
that.
helps so much with people who wrestle with self-doubt because as I mentioned, like I was indecisive if this was the field for me because I quit my job, went full-time entrepreneur, and it didn't work. I didn't have a spark, a hope, an inkling of anything. And so I think that for individuals, like you said, who have that wrestling with self-doubt, if this is right, if this is where I'm supposed to be, it's more so those external validations that just come in and confirm like
Mhm.
you're exactly where you're supposed to be at. Just relax. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, because I can give an example of an opportunity that came along to me, and I reached back out to them and was like, sure, let's discuss. I never heard
Mm.
from them again. And
Mm.
I'm like, huh. And I for a second I almost got upset, but then I'm like, that wasn't for you.
Yeah.
That wasn't for you at all, because if it
Mm.
was, those things would have lined up and aligned like beautifully, seamlessly, no problems.
Mm.
If it was, or since it wasn't meant for me, I'm like, that stop, that just happened there. I'm like, mm-mm, something didn't feel right in the
Mm-hmm.
first place.
Mm-hmm. When you
I
know, you
might
know.
entertain it, but I was like, let me at least say I'll hear you out.
Yeah.
And never heard. So I'm like, okay, that's all I need to know. All I need
Mm.
to know. And I'm not going to fight for it either, because
Oh,
you came to me, first of all.
okay. Let's not get it twisted.
No, but you touched on something about entrepreneurship, because that is something that ends up falling into the laps of a lot of yoga teachers and providers. Um,
Yeah.
well, not, I wouldn't even say unintentionally, but it's not necessarily the first thought that we have
Mm-hmm.
when you either start learning all of the things about anything that you're going to share, but it is a very important aspect of it, because you are becoming a business owner.
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit more about that experience that you had as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, like I said, y'all, it's been really ghetto here. I'm just kidding.
It is.
But if
It
I'm gonna be honest with you, I feel like I've learned how to see myself in entrepreneurship because there were a lot of qualities within me that trauma suppressed within me, as far as my leadership and my outgoingness, my outspokenness. And yes, yoga helped me to reconnect back to that, but then also branding myself within, being a yoga instructor or a health and wellness influencer. It was definitely a challenge because I was so, I've always been very adamant about letting people know I'm here to help. But then it's also like, okay, I'm here to help, but I got to put a price tag on it. I have to, make sure that I can grow this, I can sustain this, I can build an atmosphere and create a space for that. So that way I can nurture this.
Right.
That was the challenging piece for me. And I'm always like if I don't know it, I'm going to go figure it out. YouTube University has helped me so much. Okay. But as far as the entrepreneurial journey, like I had to grow myself in, and I'm still every day, perfecting little things about. Okay, well, I need to make sure that I'm maintaining my budget, and make sure that I'm allocating this to this, or making sure that I'm consistent in this area because it gets
Yeah.
challenging, and when we are including the business aspect of the brand of yoga of whatever the realm of wellness that we're in, we have to
Mhm.
make sure we don't lose our passion because there
Mm.
was the first like not gonna lie, yes, my business has been open for 2 years, but for those 2 years, I lost passion for the reason why I started my business.
And that you almost have to plan for that, but
Oh my goodness.
you wouldn't know that until you're in it. And it's like,
Yes.
I lost my yoga practice for almost a good year and a half
Yeah.
doing full-time yoga,
Mhm.
and it felt terrible.
Yeah.
I burnt out from teaching way more than I should have.
Mhm.
But it's one of those things that I learned lessons the hard way. I'm very hard
Okay.
headed,
Listen.
and I
You see
gotta,
this head? This head ain't baked for no
you know,
reason.
I'm an Aries. I'm gonna ram my head into the wall as many times as I can
Yeah.
until I finally realize you can't break the wall with your head, T.
Okay. You just gotta chill. But
But
it was hard.
it
It's so hard.
is. It
Because the
is so
growing through
hard.
it is like I have to, because I went through this ego death and I'm still transitioning from it, because I had to know that yes, I am the face of my business. I'm the face of my brand, but it was my spirit that moved me here. And if I keep forgetting to operate from there, and if I keep drawing myself into the work of it, I'm going to miss the purpose of it.
Mhm.
And so I think I'm in this because I constantly reassess myself. Like I mentioned, when I first started my business, it was literally just herbal infused oils. I'm like, I'm gonna just go and promote these oils, and I'm gonna be the best in the city at that. And I think that God sat me down and He was like, you have so much more than just your oils. That's just one umbrella, one branch of something that you're fully capable of doing. And so, one, humbling yourself to sit down and then get redirection, and knowing that you are not a failure because you're planning and you're putting together your baby, you're planning your pregnancy pretty much. It's a lot. And I encourage entrepreneurs, especially, within this field, to have, I have a yoga instructor myself. I still practice while I teach. And I think that is an aspect, because yeah, I can do so much personal practice, but I still need to be taught. I still need to learn. I still need to be a student, because that'll help me to be a better teacher. So losing
Exactly.
don't lose that.
Oh, very good advice. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Hmm.
Yeah, like I said, these are things that we don't always think about, but if you want to be like me and learn the hard way, go for it. But
Okay.
please
Don't
take
do it,
heed.
y'all.
Yes, like learn all of the things, plan accordingly, have backups and contingencies and all this stuff.
Hmm.
And practice discernment on the things that are good for you and what are and aren't good for you.
Yeah.
Protecting yourself, all of these things that you have to think
Yeah.
about, aside from just putting together a class.
Hmm. And it
Because
starts with
that's
trying. When
right.
we give
Like,
effort, we might be scared initially, but you never know what's right for you unless you try it first.
exactly.
And like you said, that whole learning what to discern through, like I didn't know at first, you can't teach with everybody. You can't teach at every venue or every atmosphere. Everybody can't be your student. So
Mhm.
it was really humbling to, okay, I have to make sure that I'm managing this gift the right way. So,
Exactly. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about um, the experience of hustle and heal. If I were to walk
mhm.
in and say I wanted either a session or whatever it is, what is it that you're providing? Give me a quick rundown of what that experience feels like.
Yes, so I love like personal one-on-one courses or classes, just because it gives me a more intimate connection time. So that way the session that we do is really more geared towards those points of us. And so whenever I have a new student, I always bring them in, allow them to choose their mats here. And then we sit down and we have kind of like a brief interview or brief introduction to one another. I let them know who I am, what everything is. And then I start asking them, are there any current experiences that you've had that have been troubling you, or any specific areas within the body that you've noticed are more painful or a little bit more needing to, stretch more. And so just really more focused assessment at the beginning of the session. And then I always love to start with grounding. So I feel like
Mm.
grounding and being present in this space is very vital. Even with any class that I start, really, it's always a meditation prior to our flow, just because I feel it's important for us to know why we're here and to connect to the breathing and get in rhythm with that. Because when we don't pay attention to it, it kind of just messes up our connection to our body and our mind in the moment. So grounding initially, and then just getting into the flow of whatever is natural. I used to really be by the book. Like when I first started teaching, I had these written out asanas and these flows. I'm like, this has to go with this and this has to go with that. But then it's like, I forget to tell them to breathe, or I forget to tell them that they have to move their leg this way. So I stopped bringing my notebook to every single session, and I started to get in rhythm and, just started to try, okay, well, let's try this and, let's try that. And ever since, I've been more intentional about just being one with my students. From the feedback that I've gotten from a lot of the students that have done my classes, is more so that felt like really personal. Like, how did you know that I needed this stretch, or how did you know that this was that?
Yeah,
And so it just always unfolds to them and their personal needs in a space. So
I love that. I love a good one-on-one session too. I
yes,
I prefer that over group classes, or at least maybe like no more than like four people.
yeah,
Like, give me the opportunity to be able to provide individualized care to each person,
yes,
because trying to cater to a large group is challenging and it's so exhausting.
okay. We gotta have some emotional energy in the bank. Listen here.
Man, I need something left in the tank when I'm done. But man, those one
Yeah,
on one sessions feel so much more connected.
yeah,
Yeah, because I can pay more attention to, how things are affecting them, be able to
hmm,
provide a little bit more nuanced advice and all of that, and really curate a space that will allow them to have the experience that they needed to come in to have.
yeah,
Because group classes are a toss up when you've got that many energies all in one space.
yeah.
So I like that you do that more one on one based, because that's needed. It's very
Hmm.
needed. Um, so now that we've felt all warm and gooey after you describing
Yeah,
this amazing grounding experience, I wanted to dive
yes.
into something a little bit more about representation within the yoga world.
Hmm.
Which is a big reason why this whole platform exists. Is I'm on a personal crusade to bring more representation of
Yeah,
Black people into the yoga space, because we know what's up.
yeah,
We know why. But
yeah.
in your opinion, what are some of the ways that we could continue the fight to continue bringing representation into the space and getting more of us to practice it too?
Yeah, just showing up. I am such a firm believer that if you create a space and you be consistent, the works will come. And
Hmm.
so, the first few classes might only have one person, or, it might just be you. But if you put your tripod in front of you, you put your phone on, you're going to start, like you said initially, like drawing those people into you who are meant to be there, and hold firm with knowing that they're on their way. And
Yeah.
I feel like when we get to a certain space, because it might be 6 months before you get your first consistent client or consistent students, but just keep showing up. And if
Right.
we wholeheartedly believe that yoga is a works or a practice that can help change the community and change the trajectory of our communities,
Hmm.
giving that consistent resource, people will gravitate towards you. Because what I've learned to understand is that yoga is almost like therapy. When you come here, you're sitting down with your thoughts. You're sitting
Hmm.
down with some of the feelings that you suppress, and it gets a little bit more intimate and challenging for people to
Yeah.
tap in. And so, just just keeping everything pure and keeping everything consistent, and not tearing each other down through the community, because I think that some of the experiences as to where I've been, has always been competitive grounds, and it's not a competition, you know what I mean, for us to provide a healing community for our community. And so I
Yes.
think collaboration, healthy collaboration, and healthy assertiveness within pushing this initiative is very important for us to remember. So, yeah.
I love that you said that about collaboration and the competitiveness, because there is no space for competitiveness in yoga when you really think about it,
Mm-hmm.
because that literally goes against the non-stealing and non-harm.
Mm-hmm.
um, we can all work together. There's literally food enough for everybody to eat,
Mm-hmm.
like we can all benefit from this, because no or no two teachers are exactly alike.
At all.
Everyone provides a different experience, everyone provides a different vibe, knowledge base,
Yeah.
whatever they may specialize in, it's a different experience everywhere you go. So when I see that happening, it breaks my heart a little bit, but I'm grateful that there are so many more of us out there now. But the fact that it still happens where folks are like, I don't know any Black yoga teachers. What do you mean?
Okay, where you been at?
Like, how can we fix this for you? Because we're
Yeah.
here. We're here. We've been here for a long time doing this
Yeah.
forever. And it breaks my heart a little bit, but I'm not going to stop this fight. So thank you for bringing up those points too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like I'm eager for the day where we don't necessarily have to always create our own space all of the
Mm.
time. Not necessarily trying to, do a whole, what is it that I'm looking for? The word has escaped my brain, because I want us all to be able to have a diverse experience in all of
Yeah.
these things that we practice. But the state of this country right now, it feels better to have spaces just for us,
Mm.
because there's still harm that happens in spaces that are a little bit more on the paler side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad to have to admit that, but that's just the truth of it. And until it happens where even, white folks diversify their experiences too, and, get their classes from more than just someone that looks like them also,
Yeah.
we're going to still be in that same situation. And I want everybody to be able to learn so much more from each other, if that makes any sense, because I think that's another way that representation will not only just help us, but help them too.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many of our problems with race in this country are the fact that we have to, for us and our safety, be so segregated.
Mm.
And that also causes them to continue to stay segregated. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you're going to continue seeing us as something unpleasant if you don't include us in your
Mm.
everyday. Like we have to include you in our everyday,
Yeah.
because it's inevitable for us.
Yeah, it's everywhere. And
Right.
I think too, just to kind of touch, especially within the yoga community, because yoga isn't an Americanized thing. It's actually from, the other side of the world. And I
Right.
think that here it's more commercialized. And I feel, because I do not fit any quota to be a yoga instructor. Okay. I am a 190-pound, 4'10" Black girl who, is curved in all the right spaces. I'm homegrown from down south. So I don't look like a yoga instructor. Okay. And I say that because I think that there's a commercialized look to it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that when God starts to choose the people he really needs to push this on the forefront, it can't be commercialized anymore.
Mm-mm.
It has to be intentional. And I think that when we get to, integrating those communities, we have to keep the intention pure. And I think that when we have our counterparts, getting themselves involved, it's always oh, well, how does this correspond with Nike? Or, like, how does this, and it's not just saying that that's everything, but the intention of it is taken out, and
Yeah.
it's put on the forefront of how can this be monetized more, or, how can this
Yes.
be pushed to a space to just pretty much make it a business entity instead of it being like that healing space that we want it to be. And it can still grow the numbers, with it still
Right.
keeping that same intention. But like you mentioned, I think it's really just connecting with the right people, collaborating with the right people with the right intentions. But then it's also like we do need us, and we're gonna be honest, we need us because
Mhm.
the more that we include people from outside of our community, the more that the mission gets misconstrued,
Yep.
and the purpose of us even being in this in the first place gets twisted. And we don't need that
Hmm.
right now. We need healing.
Exactly.
We need change. We need people who are going to go and be right next to us while we fight our demons in the dark. We don't need to sit
Exactly.
there and keep suppressing all of the hurt, like you said, and all of the trauma, because that's why we're here where we are right now with this division.
Hmm.
So it's either you're gonna come keep it real, or you can go back over there with Miss Mary, who does, Pilates on Saturdays.
Exactly. Like it's gonna be slow progress. And
Yeah.
I'm I'm grateful that we're able to, talk and have spaces like this. And it's growing so much more. I'm seeing more podcasts for, hosted
Mm-hmm.
by Black folks about yoga, and seeing more classes being held by yoga or Black folks. I'm seeing more, festivals and stuff hiring us for these things. And
Mm-hmm.
not only that, but just us creating these spaces for us to be able to do this and thrive. It's so goddamn beautiful that I'm
Okay.
just like, my heart is overflowing, but I'm like, but I see it being so much bigger. And I'm like, I can't wait for that day. I
Yeah.
can't wait, but I'll try.
Mm-hmm.
That's that impatience in me where I'm like, I'm ready to see the future right now, but
Okay.
I'll walk the walk. I'll walk the
Like, give me a
walk.
little sneak peek, God. Okay, just show me a little glimpse.
Exactly. Like I want to get to the good stuff, but
Yeah.
I'll work. I'll fight for it.
Hmm.
I ain't no scared. I ain't scared of no fight for it.
The appreciation for me comes through the work. And
Oh yeah.
I struggle with that so long because I'm like, but I want to see the results right now. But God, He always like corrects me. He's like, if you don't just sit down and put your head down and work, you know. But it's also like enjoying the work. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
can do the work, but I love what I do. Like, and I have had to go through a lot to be able to say that. And I think that anybody can relate to that too when you really start to transition into your
Oh
purpose.
yeah.
And so just, enjoy the process. Don't grudge it because it's everything in the world allows us to have hate or to feel a certain type of way about what we're doing. But
Yep.
this is a process that you can be developed and grown through, and I think appreciating that will help you so much through your journeys.
Oh, definitely. Oh, 1,000%. I had to go through racial trauma in yoga spaces for me to fully understand that I needed to be much more serious about this right here.
Mm,
Because it started in the pandemic and I had all the time. But then I started
mm-hmm.
working again and I started putting a little bit more focus in other things than this. I even took a year-long break on it. And
Yeah.
in that experience, I'm like, remember what you started and why? It was
Mm,
because you didn't want people to be experiencing what you're experiencing right now. It's because
mm,
you're in this space that is not safe for you
yeah.
at all. And that's what you're fighting against. So
Mm,
get back to it.
yep. Okay. Put your head down.
Like that's just like get back to it. So that's as soon
Yeah.
as I realized that, I'm like, all right, we got to make this bigger then.
Mm,
And I'm so glad you said that because it is very true. You have to live in it and appreciate that grunt that
yeah.
that grit that you're working through.
Mm,
And Oh, it becomes so much more delicious at the end.
Okay. When people, I just want to say this too because people be lying. Let me just say this. It is not. I'm gonna be real with y'all. If anything, it is not blissful every single day when you are a yoga instructor. You just because
No.
you know the light, don't mean every day is gonna be light. Some days it's gonna be that battle between you and darkness. You know, you gotta learn how to dance. You gotta learn how to navigate through those emotions. You still have to be a human being through your process. And
Right.
then when we learn through this process, we can ascend to that level. But I think, like, especially society and social media has hyper fixed this idea of when we're following purpose, it's easier. It is way harder. It is way harder.
So much. I'm just gonna challenge the fuck out of you.
Oh my goodness, you hear me? I'd be ready to swing on everybody. Like, leave me alone. You don't know what I'm going through. But
Exactly.
when we pray, because I think that I'm in this phase of my life where I feel like God is bringing me my people. And I had to go through a period of like, okay, I'm by myself through this. Like, why would you tell me to do this if you will make me be by myself?
Right.
And I was, resentful about it. I questioned if I was supposed to do it. Like I said, just wrestling with the identity of being where I am and what I'm doing. But being able to, like, how do I say this? Remove ourselves in a way.
Mm.
Like, we're going through it, but this isn't our story. Like, this is our story, but it's not personal.
Right.
And when we can start, associating ourselves with taking the personal out of it and just keep moving through it, it makes it so much easier, because a lot of the challenges that we encounter, it's not just meant for us. It's meant for us to go through so that way we have a blueprint now, and then we can go
Exactly.
and teach and, model that in different ways. So I think that that was a lesson that I had to learn because maybe my heart is very sweet and I got burned a lot. And I'm
Look.
like, okay, let me reassess things because it's not personal. It's
Right.
not personal at all. So
I can
that was a hard
relate.
lesson.
I can definitely relate. I wanted to jump back into something that you said about the practice being seen as this thing that's always light, or even teaching is something that's always light. And that spiritual bypassing aspect of
Mm.
yoga that happens so often where folks are like positive vibes only, love and light all the time, blah, 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 not bringing enough to the forefront about how much shadow work is done in yoga. Like, what's been your experience with that? Like, tell, because I know you have, I can already see it that you
Oh,
have an experience with that. What's that been like for you, not only as someone practicing yoga, but as an instructor of it? Like, how have you facilitated that for your students?
yeah, so I've actually been blessed to have the gift to talk to the youth. And as I mentioned, and I think that this is something that I've been blessed to have as my purpose is to go and talk to students and to teach to students who are experiencing the same traumas and the same hurts that I've experienced in my life. And so when I'm in these flows and I get to doing, my classes, I'm gonna try not to get emotional when I say this, but I have a lot of students who are me. And I have a lot of students who have that fear, that pain, that anger, that frustration when I'm teaching them. And I let them know just by my tone of voice, by my presence, by my intention that I feel them, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's easy to say like you feel me, you understand," but like when I say that, I don't just say it. I live it. I
Right.
live through that understanding, and it's been a challenge for feeling inadequate to be like, why would I be the one to do this? I'm
Right.
still being triggered by a lot of things, or I'm still having these mishaps or this shortcoming for myself. Like, how am I equipped to do this? And I think that it's very humbling to understand that I am still a student to myself as well. Just because
Yeah.
I'm this big shot yoga teacher does not mean that I am omitted from feeling emotions when I'm teaching. You know, I remember this one class, and I be trying to keep it real professional, guys. I remember this one class, it was an individual session, and one of my students, they were going to therapy. And she had just came from her therapist into the session. And we literally just sat there and just broke out crying. Like, I got her into child's pose, and next thing I know, I just hear those tears coming, and I felt everything. Like I felt it all from her, and just from the conversations that we had and the flows that we were doing, it was release, you know.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, like I'm a firm believer that what we see is what we are. And so for me to be able to see her, you know, experience that, I took it personal. You know, I took it as a I needed this too, you know, like
Yeah.
I needed this release. I needed this experience as well. And I think that's why it's such a large energetic exchange when we teach, you know, to that
Oh yeah.
aspect, because we do feel our students, and, you know, we do empathize with you all. And I think that that aspect has afforded me the introspective feeling to push past my physical, push past my emotional, you know, and allow my spirit to lead, because my spirit is more wise than anything else that I can conjure up from this physical aspect. So I'm gonna listen to her every time. I might not always want to.
But you're gonna have to at some point.
Either way, she gonna make sure I hear her. So, you know, there's no escaping what purpose is for you and what your life is. Either way, shape, or form, you know, we always gonna be confronted with it again. So
Mhm.
the more that we can sit with it and appreciate it, the better it gets for us. So
Oh yeah. And the
hmm
and that's what I love about the practice is that it brings that stuff to the light. And
yeah.
like that's what the love and light is about. It's about shining the light on the places that you've cast a dark shadow over and we're trying to forget about what's going on in that little corner over
Yeah.
there. Let that be something that you work through, process, feel,
Mm.
and then go into your contentment. Go into that
Yeah.
space where you are no longer affected so much by it.
Mm.
Thank you for that testimony. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for that, man. Because
Yes.
the way that I have like mentally checked out of some classes that I have gone to with folks that will do that, and I'm like, yes, yoga can be a place of a sort of a retreat from the burdens of life,
Yeah.
but it's also a space where you can heal from the things that the burdens of life have done to you, and
hmm
not just I get to take this hour long, hour and a half long, however long the class is, break from the humdrum and bullshit, blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
But it arms you with the ability to handle the bullshit when you are away
Mm.
from this space, and it's a
That's
lot more
funny you said
freeing.
that. In my head, what was coming up is like we're like soldiers that's fighting in a war.
Yeah.
And when we come to places like this, some days we're just getting armor for ourselves and we're equipping ourselves.
Yes.
You know, this is like our weapon center.
Ammunition for all the
Yeah.
stuff. Air it out when you need
hmm
to.
And eventually it'll be peaceful. It will be peaceful.
Yes.
But you gotta go to war for peace first. You
Yes.
know?
Because that's like, what is it? What's done in the dark always comes to light. What you leave
Okay.
in the dark always comes to light.
It's gonna find you. Hmm
Yep, it'll find you. It'll come up, and it's always going to be at a time where you're like, that was just piss poor timing. I was having
Okay.
a great time, and all of a sudden I'm in tears. What the?
hmm
It's because you didn't work through it when you needed
I
to. Now
mean,
it's just showing up uninvited.
hmm,
Let it
ain't that
go.
real? Okay.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, we are near the end of our time together. So I wanted to make sure that we have some time for you to share even more advice because you've been like just throwing all the greatness out here.
Thank
But
you.
I still want you to be able to share a little bit more advice to the newbies of the yoga space. And that's both students and teachers. What advice would you give to especially those in the community, those looking to start their yoga journey, their practice, diving into the lifestyle? What would you tell them?
What you are seeking from this practice is true. So if you are coming here and you're looking for healing or you're looking for the answers for your unanswered prayers, it's all going to be found here. And I'm saying that from personal experience because when people doubted me and my abilities to be where I am, I've had people laugh in my face, but I knew that yoga would bring me what I needed. And when I had that expectation, I received just that. And so I want to tell people that because, like I said before, yoga is not just on our mats, it's in our everyday life. And so when we stay consistent with finding and seeking that, we can see it in all aspects, but we just have to keep our belief system open to receiving it in that way. And
Mm.
so what you seek in yoga, you will find. And just keep at it. Don't stop, don't hesitate, don't forget. Don't forget. So yeah.
Yes. And then let's transition that question over to the new instructors. What advice would you give them?
Be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself and always be a student, no matter what proficiency level you reach. Um, and take time to appreciate this. Very often, even if it's every once a week or once a month, whatever you can, just really monitor how far you've already come. Because there was a space when you once were curious about this, and now you've taken action to start immersing yourself in it. And you might be teaching at a local gym, or you might be holding local classes. And the next thing you know, you end up in your own studio. So just always be attentive to your progress and don't compare yourself to anybody.
Mm.
Compare yourself to your progress and how far you've come. Because when you do that, then you're it's so much more appreciation there. And I'm saying that because I'm still going through that same thing myself, y'all. So
It
every
never
day,
ends. It
every
never
day.
ends. Yes.
Hmm.
You will always find that little, it's like that little nagging voice, but it's there mainly. I don't know. I believe it's there to just keep you humble, but
Okay.
don't let it dictate everything.
Yeah. And
Yes.
don't move too like I ain't gonna say aggressively, but just flow with it. When
Yeah.
you find that rhythm in yoga, let it resonate with you. Let
Mm.
it really like sit with you and like permeate in all that you do. And whatever little practices that we learning, I ain't gonna call them little, whatever big practices we're learning on our mats or we're teaching on our mats, let's be sure that we're giving that energy to the world as well, because the world needs that light from us. And we
Yes.
are guides for a reason. So just wanted
Yes.
us to know that.
Oh, Maya, you are just a gem. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for that sound advice.
Mm.
Do you have anything at the moment that you'd like to plug and let the people know about?
So October 28th, I will be, if you are in the Cincinnati area, I will be a guest panelist for a discussion for a group called Black Women Cultivating Change.
Nice.
And the topic is mother grief and overcoming motherhood trauma. And I think that that is very important for us to talk about, especially as Black women. So it is a free event. If you are able to join, it is at Black Coffee Lounge on October 28th at 10 a.m. And like I mentioned, I'll be speaking along with some other really prominent women leaders in our city. Um, and tap into my YouTube channel. I will be posting more videos on there this coming year. And that is Hustle and Heal LLC. And yeah, God is cooking some things up, so I'm gonna keep praying for everybody, and I pray in the name of healing for us all that we continue to answer the call and we keep putting on the armor that we need so that way we can be equipped to go to war for this peace that we
Mm.
know exists. So we ready.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, All the snaps. I can't even snap right today, but you getting them.
Yeah.
You getting
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here today, Maya. I
Yes.
truly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations to all the things that you are doing and even all the things that are about to happen in the future because I can tell it's bright for you.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
to all those listening, be sure to follow Maya on all the socials. Get into that YouTube channel, damn it, right now.
Okay.
Right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
After you
Like
subscribe to
her.
this one, too. Like, subscribe to
Okay.
all the things, okay? And then just
Yes.
stay in the know. Um, thank you to all of you listeners. I truly appreciate you. None of this would be possible without all of y'all here. So
Yes.
thank
Thank
you
you
so much for
guys.
the love that y'all pour into this. I am about to peace out. So I will see y'all again next week. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever day you listening to this
Yes.
on. New episodes every Tuesday. Love y'all so much. Peace out.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to the Yoga in Black podcast. What did you think of this episode? Leave us a comment or a rating on whichever platform you're listening or watching from today, right after you subscribe. Be sure to follow us on all our social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram at yoga.inblack, Facebook yogainblack, and TikTok yoga.in.black. Also, head to www.yogainblack.net for all your YIB needs. Next episode, I'll connect with Shanice Matthews. New episodes air every Tuesday. And if you'd like to be on the show, fill out our waitlist form on the website. Be sure to click on Let's Talk from the menu. I can't thank you enough for all of your support. Really, this could not be done without you. Thanks for listening.